Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Ask Anything session. We're excited that you're here. We're excited that you've had the opportunity to join the day or the evening and hear from a few representatives over the last few hours. And now it's your turn this is really going to be run by our participants and what you feel like you need as we think about the college admissions process. We all know you want your best match, your best fit. And so this is your chance to find out which, how do you best go about doing that? What are some things you should be thinking about? What conversations should you consider with your families? What what are your priorities, and how do you know what those are, and how do you look for those, and how do you find out what institutions have the things or the options that are important to you? And so these are the things we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started and have our panelists introduce themselves, and also kick us off with what is one thing that, as juniors, because we do have juniors and seniors that were invited to this fair, what is one thing that juniors should be thinking about that are very early in this process?
Sonia, I had 5 things written down. So
I
choose
like it.
one.
Please do.
So if I can maybe say 2, but hi everyone, I'm Courtney Lima. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions at College of the Holy Cross. I'm located in Worcester, Massachusetts, for some context there. So I had a few things written down for juniors. My number one thing is start to get organized, and that's, we have Google Docs, we have an Excel sheet. So as you start to research, start putting your colleges down, all their deadlines, the thing that they require. That can also include, in the previous session, someone said advice about creating a college email. So just start to get organized so all your college things go to one place. And then my second bonus advice, I'm going to cheat, is possibly start thinking of a summer program that you can do next summer to kind of get you dive in deep into the potential area that you may want to study. That can definitely get you a little introduction of what it feels like to be on a college campus. And a lot of summer programs also have a lot of financial aid for students.
Thanks for that, Courtney.
Yeah, I think both of those are really good. I don't really think I need to say anything else. Hello everyone. My name is AJ Lee. I'm an assistant director of undergraduate admissions at the University of Denver in Denver, Colorado. And yeah, I just wanted to echo everything that Courtney said, and I think it's it might be a little cheesy to say, but that is just kind of like soul search and being like, hey, what do you want in a college? You're really thinking about putting a lot more specific things into that Excel spreadsheet, like big things that are important to you might be like location or the size of the school or what kind of programs that they have. So just getting a head start on that research, and then just being very intentional on why you're choosing what college and what things are important to you. So yeah.
Thank you both. Like I said, to our participants, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A or the chat. We're able to see both, and we definitely want to make sure we're meeting your needs and answering the questions that you have. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask another one. We just talked about juniors, so I'm going to move to seniors. What should seniors be keeping in mind as we are approaching time for them to hit the submit button on their applications?
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty much everything that you're doing junior year, but then really more focused and just a lot more urgent. And I'd say get one big thing I'd say for seniors is to get started on that financial aid as soon as possible. I know that this year is going to be a little bit different because of the FAFSA is going to be opening up in December-ish, but they don't even know when that's going to be really opening up. So that's still kind of up in the air, but yeah, just in general for seniors to just get a head start on, all the financial aid stuff, FAFSA, CSS profile, anything that you need to get done, and just looking up all the requirements that other schools have on their financial aid. But yeah, just getting a head start on that.
I love that. And just to build more on financial aid, also for the parents in the space and guardians, making sure taxes are also completed and put together, because those are the important documents that students are going to need to complete the 2 financial aid forms, the FAFSA, or I should say the second one, which is also the CSS profile. That is a private form found through the College Board. So all of that is done through the taxes. So, as we talk about organization, that is very important. Secondly, if you haven't asked people to write letters about you, make sure you start organizing that, so that can be making sure your guidance counselor knows you, which teachers you want to talk about you. But also, is there like maybe another community member? Maybe you're volunteering at an organization, maybe you have a part-time job, right? So maybe your manager knows you really well, and they can talk about this extra characteristic of you that your teacher or guidance counselor necessarily can't touch upon. And lastly, with submitting college applications, there's also college fees that come with that as well. So also as a reminder that different colleges have waivers, you may qualify for them. So that's also definitely something to start doing your research on and gather that information, so you don't necessarily have to spend a lot of money to submit college applications, because that's the last thing we want, is you not applying to college because of the waiver. Please reach out to any college if that is a hurdle. We all have fee waivers to give to students, in your high school I'm sure does as well, or the city. Everyone has different ways of handing out fee waivers, but the college always have some to hand out to students.
Such great tips for just self-advocacy in going through this process, for sure. So we do have a question. So talk a little bit about demonstrated interest. Is this a real thing? How do students show it? And how can counselors help facilitate this?
Yes, demonstrated interest is a real thing. I gave a little preview to my life in the previous session. So I've been in the field about 10 years, and I was a college counselor for a little while. And in between, I did admissions and then went into college counseling. And one thing I learned through the admissions side is that, especially for first-gen students, they didn't know what demonstrated interest was and how to do it. I was a first-gen student. If you asked me at 17 years old what that was, I'm like, I don't know. I just applied to college, right? So demonstrated interest is definitely real the more selective colleges get. And demonstrated interest could look differently based on which college that you are applying for. There's usually 2 tiers. One, it can be engaging with the university, and that can be attending like what you're doing right now. We're going to get a list of all the students that came to this and upload it to our system. So when we read your application, it would show that you did the Strive Scan Cristo Rey College Fair. It could be an interview. It could be coming to campus. It can be simply emailing me and saying, hey, I have a few questions, and we'll connect that email to your application. I have some Cristo Rey students come into my overnight program, so it could be just going to a college as well. Now, in for Holy Cross, we don't have a supplement, so we don't ask a required essay that says why Holy Cross. Some institutions do have that, and that's how they track demonstrated interest, is learning more about how a student knows about them. And I'll end there. AJ?
No, again, that was perfectly said. And yeah, it definitely is a real thing. And so similar to Holy Cross, University of Denver does not have a YDU kind of essay. So yeah, being able to track students that have gone to our visits, have interacted with us through fairs, through coming to visits, coming to events on campus, things like that. Even going into I'd say my biggest advice to students for demonstrated interest is to just reach out to your admission counselor, and reach out to the person that's working in your territory, and just be like, hey, I want to learn more about the school. What are some steps that I need to do to to apply, and things like that. So just being able to build that rapport, and being able to build that relationship with the counselor even before you apply. I think that's a really great way to just get your name out there, and to show that you're interested.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so there's credit being given for attending today. No, we will be passing those names on, all of the contact information of those who are attending all of the sessions throughout our 2 days of the fair, today and Saturday. Another question I have is about families. We all want families engaged in this process, but what are the best ways for them to support their students, and what might be some ways they shouldn't support their students, or students need to go a little bit on their own? And I just came out of this process. My son's in his first year at college, and it was a really thin line to tread. So yeah, no, I'm curious to hear your perspectives from your institution.
Yeah, I think definitely it is a thin line for sure. And it's definitely going to be case by case, depending on, you know, your family dynamics and everything like that. But in general, I'd say parents just try to be as hands off as you can, just being able to have like a guiding hand, and just being very supportive, and yeah, kind of fight the urge to, you know, call the admission counselors, even though we do love talking to you, we do love speaking with you and everything like that. But you know, I love speaking with the students more, and you know, wanting to hear from them and their perspective, without the influence of their parents, or you know, someone that they do respect, but then, you know, just really wanting to see what they want truly as them. So giving them the leeway to be able to do that, and giving them kind of having that it's like a training wheels moment, you know, before you go into college, and letting them go out on their own. You know, let's see them take ownership of this, and you know, yeah, really make that Excel spreadsheet, and you know, do that, and being supportive for them. So yeah.
I love that. And AJ, I think the training wheel metaphor was perfect, because they're about to go away to college, right? And parents are not going to be there to solve every problem. And I always like to say, like, shake you to wake up to go to class, right? So this is like the first step of a student really trying to problem solve. Type a professional email to an admissions counselor. What does that look like? I know students love texting, but now we have to pick up the phone and call an admissions counselor. What is that like? So I think a lot of this also builds, it may be joking, but like life skills that once they get to college, they're going to learn how to email a professor, how to advocate for themselves when they need help. So I think this is a perfect process, a perfect time to just kind of like sit in the back seat, let them drive, but you're still in the back seat, you're still observing, and you can kind of like tell them to take a left when you need, but hope that they put on the signal before you say anything. But it's just like AJ said, that fine balance, but I'm sure you guys are great and will do fine.
Yeah, and I want to add, like, even like at college fairs, you know, try not to do much of the talking. You know, let the students do it, as much as uncomfortable as they may be. You know, this is kind of that, yeah, again, like that first step into kind of advocating for themselves, and being able to be independent in that way.
Thank you. So next, you both talked about financial aid. It is a little bit delayed this year, and opening in December, whereas it has been the past couple of years been opening October 1. Can you talk a little bit about when they get families get that aid letter, and it's maybe not it's more than what they the expectation of their contribution is more than what they expected. What are some steps they can take to try to appeal that, or advocate? Yeah, what would the process be there for our families?
So this is where it comes to being organized is very important, because different colleges may have different ways of appealing their financial aid. Some may have download this document, insert specific information and submit it. Some may say you have to meet with us one-on-one to really have this open discussion about your situation. But the biggest thing when submitting an aid appeal is there any new information that has come that wasn't part of the FAFSA or the CSS profile? Something, Sonia, and your team, I'm sure you talk with students, there is a differentiation between, and I saw this, I think we all saw this in our families, what our families think we can pay versus what the documents are saying families can pay, right? And a lot of times when families are trying to do appeals, it's coming from, well, no, we can't pay this, but according to the documents, it's saying something else. So that argument isn't necessarily going to work if it's more so of no, we can't do that because we know how much money we take in and we have all these bills. That's not necessarily the argument, but it could be. So for context, when you fill out your financial aid, it's prior. So it's information from 2 years ago. So for instance, my mom lost her job my senior year of high school. I did not know I could do a financial aid appeal. That's something that a counselor never told me. So when I got financial aid, it was based off both of my parents working. And I never knew to advocate and let them know that actually I've had a change. My mom lost her job, right? So that's something I don't wish that upon anyone, but that's an example that may not have been relevant to the financial aid documents that you submitted. Maybe there's medical bills that aren't included in the FAFSA or the CSS profile. So it has to be submit appeals, have to have additional information of things that weren't captured on the original financial aid documents. That was a long answer. Sorry, AJ and Sonia.
No worries.
No, that's
Okay, anything to add?
yeah, no, that's totally fine. And I think I'll add another kind of wrinkle into that as well. On top of family circumstances or personal circumstances or financial changes, you could even for DU anyway, we have merit awards that we give to our students. So those merit awards, they're tiered based off of your GPAs and your test scores if you do choose to send those test scores in. But yeah, every student receives a merit scholarship, but then if your grades have increased since that time, or you've gotten you've had more of an upward trend, and then you'd like to appeal that, then you definitely can do that as well, and kind of just be like, hey, my grades have improved since this time. Could I get more for a merit appeal? So those are kinds of some things that you kind of work around as well.
I think another appointment to add is, and I think this is why research is so important, Holy Cross is very need-based driven in terms of financial aid. So we give out merit awards to about 10% of our students, and they're not allowed, what's the word that we're using? You can't ask for more money on your merit. So you can't appeal your merit award. So the merit award you get from Holy Cross is the merit award you get from Holy Cross. And something to note too is that you also can't compare what you get from one college to the other. Some colleges will ask for financial aid letters of other colleges that you've received, and they may try to match that. But something to know, what's done at one school may not be done at another school. So again, Holy Cross, we don't match any financial aid awards. So a student may submit it, but that's not part of the financial aid appeal process. So that's why it's important, again, to stay very organized, for students to be in the driving seat and know how to contact different colleges to make sure that they're asking the right questions, because one college's answer may be different from another college.
Yeah, thank you for that. But by and large, what the number that gets spit back from filing financial aid is an equation and an algorithm that we don't always, we can't always understand or see. But it's really difficult to change unless there has been an actual change in those circumstances that's documented and can be provided overall. I appreciate that. Well, let's talk a little bit about essays. How are essays used? What are you looking for? How can students really put their best foot forward in an essay?
Yeah, I'd say, excuse me, sorry. I think throughout the whole application, the essay is the only thing that you really have control over. Your grades are your grades, your test scores are your test scores, your activities, the extracurriculars, those are all kind of things that you've done throughout your years in high school, but the essay is really kind of your chance to really show us another side of you, and just another part of you that the application doesn't show. So I would say you can write about anything that you want to write about, and as long as it's personal to you and it really that you're vulnerable with that and that you're doing that. So I tell students all the time, I know that the essay might be stressful and you might not know what to write about or anything like that. There's so much pressure onto that, but try not to think of it that way. It's definitely not that much pressure. Try to have fun with it. People like me and Courtney, we're the ones that are reading these essays, and we're human too. So just really think about that and just really kind of be vulnerable with us, and what that'll kind of show through your writing, and we'll see that.
I love your reminder, AJ, that the people reading these are they are human. And I love that they have your faces to look at right now, because it does feel like just this machine that you're sending these things off to that's just gonna spit something out, and it's gonna be totally random. But it's not. There are very, very real people being very intentional and thoughtful and involved in this process. So yeah, just thank you for that reminder that these are going to human people that care about students and want what's best for everyone and what's in everyone's best interest.
Yes, as much as the news talks about AI, we are physical people. I still remember my favorite essay when I got in the field 10 years ago is this young woman wrote about her mood socks. So she kind of talked about different parts of her life through the socks that people gave her. So one, she was a volleyball player, so she had these high top socks, and she became known as a girl with the high top socks and always had to wear those to the volleyball games. And then another pair of socks talked about her family and getting this gift of socks. So you can write about socks. Having a sock collection was not part of her common application, right? But I just learned so much about her through socks. Who would have thunk, right? So I think that's a great example. As AJ was saying, you can write about anything. I always say 3 things on the college essays. AJ said the first of write about something that we're not learning anywhere else on your Common App. Second, if you're writing about someone, make sure you bring it back to you. There are so many essays I read about moms and grandmas and abuelitas and tias and everyone, and I'm like, I want to admit them. I want to be best friends with mom. She's great. Because I don't learn anything about the student, right? So just make sure you bring it back to the student. And then thirdly, we've gone through difficult things these past few years. None of us know who's behind the screen right now, what your background is, what you have gone through. So some students may decide to write about something that is difficult. AJ mentioned the word vulnerable a lot, but I just remind students to make sure there's a conclusion or a piece of growth. There's been some essays that I've read that I've called a counselor because I've been very concerned about a student's mental health. So that's not to steer away from writing something that's difficult, but make sure you do add that piece of growth within your college application.
Yeah, thank you for that. Let me ask about test scores. So we went from the qualitative to as quantitative as we can. So test scores. And so many schools are test optional. How should students decide? Do they send? Do they not send? If they don't want to send, but they accidentally send, what does all that mean? What are the implications? And how's merit? You both talked about merit aid. How is that impacted by test scores or no test scores?
So straight to the point, I tell students if they don't fall within our range, don't send them. I think that's a good measure. I do think saying, I was talking to a counselor and they're either take them or don't take them. Test optional is very confusing for students, right? It's either yes or no, but the middle can be confusing a bit. But I shared a little bit earlier, so specifically for Holy Cross, 2/3 of our students apply without testing. So it's much more of the norm. But I think the biggest factor is it's also 2/3 of our students getting admitted without testing. So it isn't necessarily a plus or minus, because I think if a school's test optional, the bigger question is how many students are you admitting without test scores? That's where the real number lies. And for us, like I said, we only give about 10% of merit. So testing is not really tied into that. It's mostly what need-based. So it's what a family can afford to come to an institution. So that's where I lean for test scores.
Yep, I totally agree with Courtney on that with test scores. In terms of merit scholarships or merit aid, We do offer merit aid to I believe it's like 87% of our students get some sort of merit aid award. And like I mentioned before, I think it was GPAs and test scores that we take into consideration, but you don't have to send those test scores in since we are test optional. So if you do want to send your application just test optional, you'll still be considered for merit scholarships.
Awesome.
Sonia, I want to answer the second part. You said, what if students submit them by mistake?
Right.
So there's a part of and again, every place is different, but on the Common App for students, you can pick like, do you want your test scores considered or not considered? So if you say no and you accidentally submit your test scores, they will be suppressed from our system, because it's for all my computer nerds in this space. There's some computer programming magician going on behind the scenes that puts 2 and 2 together. So they will be suppressed from an application.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. I think one thing we've heard or seen is the test score being on the transcript when that gets submitted. And so that may be a question where families can also follow up with their schools to find out if that's also a part of the equation.
I want to clarify that won't be suppressed.
No, yeah.
Because the magician can't white out the test score on a transcript, but if they're like on the Common App or get sent by the College Board, they will be suppressed.
Got it. Yeah, no, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Well, we talked about a lot of pieces of the application process. And so wondering, and I know there's not a very clear answer here, but what is the most important thing students, and remember we have juniors and seniors, like what is the most important piece of this process? We talked test scores, we talked essays, we talked GPA a little bit, here, like what demonstrated interest, like how do those kind of rank, and any other pieces, and where should the focus really lie in this process?
At the end of the day, it's going to be the work you did in school. So it's going to be the 4 years of the good work that you did. And I say 4 years, so that's a little piece of advice. I know a lot of students get told junior year is your most important. We will not make a decision until we have senior year grades. So whatever awesome work you've been doing up until 11th grade, keep it going till senior year. There are a lot of students that we read that, man, they were doing great 9, 10, 11, and then they took a nap senior year and they did not get admitted. So, we want 4 years of good work. And I think we're both very familiar with the Cristo Rey school. So that means challenging yourself with AP courses, with honors courses, and doing well. Because at the end of the day, if a student visit our campus 1,000 times, they interviewed, they did everything, but they cannot hold themselves academically, they will not be admitted into our institution.
Yeah, thank you for that.
And I'd say start getting ready and start getting excited for college. I think that's very important because once you start taking ownership of your own search and in your own research and reaching out to the admission counselors and just really seeing yourself, going to visits, getting involved and really looking forward to that, then everything is going to line up with your application, with your essays and everything, and it's really going to show. So just get excited. This is a really exciting time, junior and senior year, and enjoy your time in high school, and also just make sure that, again, that you're organized, and that's kind of everything that's going to really fall in place.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So both of you mentioned a little bit about just mental health, and we've talked a lot about what students are bringing to the university, but I want to talk a little bit about what do universities have for students? How can students know or figure out that universities can meet them where they are in the identity, belonging, some of these pieces that have really been in the headlines lately and have a tremendous impact on mental health?
Yeah, we definitely, that's kind of like one of our big cornerstones, our 4 dimensions of our school that we really want to promote mental, emotional, and physical well-being. So we do have our health and counseling center that's very easy to get to on the north side of our campus. And just as well as just great communities through living and learning communities or our cultural centers. We also have our One Gen U programs for our first generation students. And just really great spaces for students to find that sense of community and that support that they need.
Similar to AJ, Holy Cross also has our Office of Student Belonging that hosts a lot of the organization for first-gen students and students of color, such as the Black Student Union, LASSO, Pride for Queer Students. So that's where a lot of our student-centered organizations are held. We also have a counseling services, but we also have counselors that focus on different student identities. So we also have a counselor, it's the multicultural counselor that works very much closely with students of color on our campus. And in addition, something that ties into mental health sometimes is also accessibility. So we also have an accessibility office, and they also have a grant that allows students to get testing for any additional services that they may need. So sometimes students struggle junior, senior year and may not know that they have a learning disability or need an extra time on an exam, and that's causing a lot of distress of anxiety and depression. And then actually meeting with the accessibility services, they learn that they had this underlying thing that they didn't know about, and now they're getting the proper services, and everything is just lining up much better for that student. So a couple different offices that are taking care of students on campus. Something I want to know, if any student in the space has an IEP or a 504, that does not automatically translate to college like it follows you through high school. So this goes back to the advocacy piece. This goes back to the research piece and being organized. If you are a student that does need additional services, you also want to make sure that the colleges you are looking at has the services to make sure you are successful. So that's definitely a very important question that you want to ask them.
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, I'm curious, you guys get asked a lot of questions. What's your favorite question to be asked? I'm gonna ask you two parts. And has there been any question any original questions you've heard that you hadn't thought of or stumped you for a minute, or just you were impressed that they asked that kind of a question early in this process?
Sonia, I don't get stumped easily.
I appreciate that, Courtney.
One of the funnier questions I love getting,
Okay.
and I'm very truthful, is when students ask, what's the food like on campus? How's the dining hall? That's a question you get all the time, but my reply is like, man, it's nothing like mom's cooking, right? Like, I feel like we have dining halls, some maybe glorified. I'm like, nope, coming home to my mom's cooked meal, home cooked meals is like, a dining hall can never compete with that, right? So I think that sometimes is funny when you know, it's college, right? You're gonna have your basic college food. So that question is always funny for me because I don't have like a 5-star Michelin restaurant answer. I'm like, we have your burgers and your French fries and you know, Parmesan chicken Thursdays or whatever that day is on our campus. But I'm gonna sit and think about a question that has stumped me. AJ?
Yeah, I think I have a question that one stumped me and impressed me at the same time. So it's a 2-for-1. But we actually University of Denver recently went through a rebrand and kind of just a relook at our mission. So like I mentioned before, we have this 4-dimensional experience, and it was newer, so it was like last year when it was all coming through. So we're trying to go on the road. I was at a fair, and then a student was like, so can you tell what's the 4D experience? And that's the first student that ever asked me, and I was like, how do you know about the 4D experience? We don't even have like brochures out about that yet. And then and that's when I was like stunned, because like I honestly didn't have that memorized at that point. And then so that was I was very impressed that, again, so seeing demonstrated interest and being able to I definitely will remember that student for the rest of my life, be like, wow, you actually stumped me, and like I didn't know. But showed that she did her research and really knew about our school. So again, I was very impressed, and yeah, so
I love that. I was also gonna jokingly that it got to the tiki-taki before it got to you, probably. For D's. It wasn't from a student, but it was from a counselor. And it made me do my job a lot better. So earlier in the earlier session, what I really enjoy about working at Holy Cross is our retention rate and success rates for students. A really high retention rate within the 90th percentiles. But they asked me very specific questions about, great, but what are your retention rates for first-gen students? And what are your retention rate for Black students on our campus? What is your retention rate for low-income students? I knew the average 95% number. This was like month 3 at Holy Cross. I'm like, I do not know the intricacies of breaking down all those numbers. And it really pushed me to research something that I didn't know. And now it made me do my job better, but it also made me believe in Holy Cross even more, because when I saw the numbers, I'm like, I should have known these a long time ago, and I should have put them on a flag and like on a board, because they're even higher than our 95 percentage, right? And I think that's great. So I was happy that I got stumped on that question, did some more research, and I was like, oh, this was great information to find. So yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. I think with all the commitments to DEI, like that's such a huge one to like, put front and center for students to know that others like them, have succeeded. Yeah, would love to hear. And for me, I'm thinking a really long way back, but get a little bit personal and just like think back to your admissions process. And if there is anything like now that you know what you know, and you guys know a lot, now that you know what you know, what would you have changed in your own process? I can tell you, it's easy for me. I applied to only one college because I just didn't know what I was doing. I was a first gen. That was the only app that came to my house. So I filled it out. But I had always wanted to go away somewhere, but I hadn't been proactive enough or, uncovered the stones and figured out how to do that. So I wish I'd been a little bit bolder. But would love to hear from you guys. What is something that you would change about your process if you could?
I'm gonna be a nerd for 2 seconds. I don't know if anyone watches the Flash DC shows. That's like what I'm binging currently. And there's
Absolutely, I've seen the Flash.
yes. So there's this thing about changing time, right? If you change one time, then you change the
Yeah.
right? So my initial answer is I'm gonna change anything, because I've loved where my life has taken me. And I always tell, and Sonia similar, I always told my students, I think sometimes in our world we perceive as being a first gen, being like the first person to set the course is like a weakness, or people have pity upon you, or sometimes, and I'm like, oh no, it's been my greatest strength. Not having a precedent, having a clean slate, being able to design my own future, like to me that has so beautiful. So I've always told my students, like, it's your biggest superpower. You're gonna soon realize it, but there's beauty within that. But if I could change and then not change the future,
Right.
one thing that I learned in my time as a college counselor, and it definitely impacted me, is there's a huge issue in undermatching in high achieving low income students, whether if they're first gen or not. And undermatching means high academics, but you don't necessarily go to the best fit college for you. And now what I know about college admissions is like, oh, I could have gone to X, Y, and Z, and I had no idea they existed, right? So I think definitely possibly exploring my options more and adding more selective institutions. I love where I ended up. It definitely I think it benefited who I was at 18 years old and the growth I did during that time. But I think definitely adding more selective institutions would have been something I changed.
Yeah. Oh, that. Thanks, Courtney.
Yeah.
I think mine was pretty similar to that. I think it's just having more of an open mind of different colleges. And yeah, not being too caught up in like, oh, it's a state school, so it's just going to be cheaper, so I'm just going to go there. Not saying that that's not a good plan or anything like that, but if that's like your only plan and you're saying that that's your only way to go to college, that's definitely not the case. So being open to all these great colleges that would give you a lot of great scholarships, and they might not be the biggest names or like the the most popular, but I went to a really small school in Iowa that like no one really knows about. And, I had the best time of my life there, and, it was a great experience. So, no matter where you end up, you're going to have a great experience and a great education. It's just all it depends on, yeah, like the fit. So, really thinking about the fit. That's why I'm saying you got to really think about that location. Think about the size, that if you want an urban campus, if you want a rural campus, all these different things that kind of culminate into your experience. That's all going to be very important. I felt, I don't regret any of my experiences that I had at my alma mater and everything. I loved everything about it, but yeah, I wish I would have kept an open mind more, and seen what else is out there instead of just you know not putting forth that effort. So yeah.
Thanks for that. We have just a few minutes left, like 4, but just wanted to close out with what advice do you have, particularly for seniors and their parents going through the process right now. I can tell you, after going through it last year, like, it is absolutely stressful, between the AP practices, the athletics, the girlfriends, the boyfriends, all the things, like, then to like add this on top, like it's an extra 30 hours a week writing the essays, getting the letters of rec, filling these things out. What advice do you have for them to keep their sanity, to keep things in perspective, as they go through this tremendously anxiety riddled process?
I would just say, honestly, everything that I've been saying this during this time, but yeah, just breathe, take a breath, just step back. Like I said, you don't have to put too much stress on that essay. You don't have to put too much stress on, a lot of these things. Just kind of have fun with that process, and instead of being stressed about it and being thinking about all these different things, just thinking about the future, looking forward, being excited about college, being excited about applying to, oh, this school seems fun, or this place seems like a great place to be, or I could see myself over here, and just like thinking about all those different possibilities. There's so many different places for you to choose from, and like I said before, wherever you go, you're going to have a great experience. You're going to have a great education. It all just depends on how that fits with you. So just being cognizant of that, and just being very intentional in what you're doing with that.
Yes. In my earlier session, I'm going to repeat the same advice I gave, because it's like a mantra of mine. Like I said, with being a college counselor, when my students would get in the weeds and start stressing, and AJ, you said breathe, I would be like, let's breathe. But I would tell them, like, walk around our office, ask where everyone went to college. And they're like, Miss, you're weird. I'm like, just ask people where they went to college. And they're like, so and so went here, so and so went there. And I'm like, yeah, we have community colleges, we have state schools, we have Ivy Leagues, we have mid-tier institutions, and guess where we are? We are all in the same place, doing the same job. I say that because I think the stressful part is, so and so got into this type of school, so and so got into this type of school, and comparing ourselves with others. Just reminding every student that there is a home for you, and your home may be different from the person sitting next to you, and their home may be different than the person in front of them. And at the end of the day, it's all about receiving a great college education. And that can take you many places, right? And that's what I leave with students is enjoy the process. It's like an important part of the process, an important part of your life. And then just have a fun ride. And then you'll find someplace, May 1, you'll find a home. And then 4 or 5 years later, you'll be at a workplace where everyone went to different colleges and you're doing the same job. So that's where I'll end.
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you both so much for taking the time to join not just 1 hour tonight, but two, and being a part of our Q&A panel. Really appreciate it. And thank you to all our participants that joined us this evening. We know this is also your free time. And so glad that you made the time. These recordings will be available tomorrow in the same schedule where you registered. It will be posted as recording so that can be watched. Thank you all. Have a fantastic night. Bye.